My name is Daniel Clark. I'm 42 years old. For over a decade, I gave everything to the company I helped build from the ground up. 12 years of 60-hour weeks, sleepless nights, last-minute fixes, and performance beyond expectations. I wasn't just a name on the payroll. I was the engine behind their entire logistics system, the guy who turned chaos into clockwork. When I joined, we were bleeding revenue on late shipments and inefficient routes. By year 5, I had helped double our margins. I didn't ask for praise. I believed in loyalty, in merit. And for a long time, I thought that loyalty went both ways. But I was wrong. It started with a quiet announcement in a Monday meeting. A new VP of technology had been hired. Some genius from Silicon Valley. Came in with a sharp suit, flashy graphs, and promises of full automation. I watched my boss, Gregory, nod like a bobblehead, eating up every word. Still, I thought I was safe. After all, I built the system they were bragging about. But safety is an illusion, especially when greed walks into the room dressed like innovation. Just 3 weeks after I presented a report showing a 47% increase in on-time deliveries, I received an email. Not a call. Not a conversation. An email. Your position has been automated. Thank you for your service. That was it. No exit meeting. No handshake. Just a robotic line about restructuring and future readiness. They replaced me with an AI that I had helped design. The same system they were now betting the entire operation on, without understanding its weak points, its blind spots, or its breaking limits. I walked out that day with my head held high. Not because I wasn't angry, but because I already knew what was coming. They didn't fire an employee. They removed the one person who actually knew how their system worked. And when things started collapsing, they didn't call the tech guy. They didn't call the new VP. They called me. But by then, I had other plans. They thought replacing me was progress. What they got was a disaster. And when the begging started, it was already too late. Back when I joined the company, it wasn't some massive corporation. We were operating out of a warehouse in South Atlanta with a handful of trucks and too many spreadsheets. I was 30 years old, just out of a logistics startup that went under during the 2008 crash. I needed a job. They needed someone who understood operations. It was a match. At first, things were rough. Broken inventory chains, late deliveries, drivers quitting mid-route. But I stayed late. Learned every route. Slept in the dispatch room more times than I can count. People started noticing. Especially Gregory, the man who later became my boss. He once told me, "You're not just solving problems. You're building the backbone." That meant something to me. By year 3, I wasn't just solving problems. I was forecasting them. I built a route optimization system from scratch. It was clunky, sure, nothing fancy, but it cut fuel costs by 18%. That alone saved the company over $700,000 that quarter. I didn't ask for a raise. Gregory gave me one anyway. We weren't just coworkers back then. We were a team. Late-night pizzas during system crashes, venting over coffee about bad clients, celebrating driver milestones like family. I trained half the warehouse managers myself. Taught our interns how to read manifests, manage inventory, handle vendor calls. People came to me with everything, not just operations. HR issues, scheduling, vendor disputes. I wasn't just doing a job. I was building something real. And then came the expansion. By year 6, We had grown into 5 new states. By year 8, I was promoted to Director of Logistics. I had a team of 40. I'd built a predictive demand algorithm that adjusted supply flow weekly and helped us beat Amazon to several contracts in local zones. We were thriving, and the company knew it. Every quarterly meeting, Gregory would praise me. Dan here? He's the engine. Without him, we'd still be stuck in analog. I believed him. I believed that loyalty meant something in business. I was wrong. Because somewhere between those handshakes and thank yous, something shifted. Maybe it was when we crossed the $50 million mark in yearly contracts. Or when the board started bringing in outsiders. The air changed. Smiles turned polite. Conversation shortened. I began noticing small things. My team leads were being asked to document their process flows. IT was migrating our systems to a cloud platform I hadn't approved. A new consultant began sitting in on our meetings, but never introduced himself. I asked Gregory once jokingly, "What's with all the tech guys suddenly popping up?" He laughed and said, "Just modernization stuff. Nothing that affects you." I believed him again, because that's what trust does. It blinds you, slowly, quietly. But somewhere in my gut I knew the company I helped build was starting to forget who actually built it. They stopped calling me the engine. Now I was just expensive. Something had changed, and not just in the office. The energy, the looks, the sudden quiet whenever I walked into a meeting room, it all felt colder. Like I had gone from being the foundation to being an overhead cost. I wasn't paranoid. I was observant. And what I started noticing couldn't be unseen. It began with a calendar invite I never received. A logistics strategy session, the kind I usually led, had taken place without me. My junior manager apologized when I found out. Said the invite must have slipped through. The next week, it happened again, this time a vendor call I'd always hosted. When I asked Gregory, he brushed it off saying, "We're just spreading responsibilities around." That was his new phrase, spreading responsibility. I knew what it meant. Then the systems I had personally built, custom dashboards, real-time inventory syncs, started being renamed. Not replaced, just rebranded. AI Assist Logistics Model V1 showed up one day in a presentation. It was literally my predictive engine, just with a shinier name. I asked one of the new tech guys what exactly had changed. He smiled nervously and said, "Just enhancements from our new platform." When I looked closer, they had stripped out my manual override protocols, the very ones that prevented false route triggers and supply mismatches. They had no idea what they were doing. I started receiving late-night texts from drivers complaining that the new route AI was sending them in circles. One driver, Steve, who'd been with us for 8 years, called me after a 16-hour haul that should have taken 9. He said, "Dan, this new system is dumb as hell. I'm getting directions that take me through blocked roads." I told him to document everything. I needed receipts. I wasn't just being pushed out of meetings, I was being strategically erased. That became clear the day I found my own report, one I had written 6 months ago about peak season traffic load risks, now sitting in a presentation deck with the new VP of Tech's name on it. Word for word. Slide by slide. The worst part? Gregory knew. He was in the room. He didn't say a thing. But I stayed quiet. I didn't challenge anyone publicly. I didn't storm out. I just watched. And documented. I started backing up every piece of work I had created over the last 5 years. Data models, performance reports, timestamp simulations, everything. I exported full copies of the logic behind our routing engines, proof that I was the original architect. I knew exactly how fragile the system was, and exactly where it would fail without my oversight. I also began recording my own meetings, just in case. Not because I was planning a lawsuit yet, but because I no longer trusted anyone in that building. The company culture had shifted from collaboration to quiet competition, and I was the old soldier in the way of their new war machine. Then came the final push. I noticed an unusual expense request, signed off by Gregory, for a third-party AI implementation team. The same team that the new VP had worked with in his last job. They were being given full access to our back-end systems. Mine included. No conversation. No notice. That same week, I was locked out of the very dashboard I built. When I asked IT, they said it was probably a permissions error. But it wasn't. It was the prelude. The email came 2 days later. Subject line: Role transition notification. I didn't open it right away. I stared at it for a minute, then clicked. Effective immediately, your position is no longer required due to successful automation of your operational responsibilities. We appreciate your years of dedication. No meeting. No face-to-face. Just a cold corporate bullet between the eyes. I sat there, alone in my office, looking around at the walls I had built my career inside. Everything felt smaller, quieter, like the company itself had gone hollow. But I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't even reply to the email. I sat there, and I planned. They erased me thinking I'd disappear. But I knew something they didn't. You can't automate instinct. You can't replicate experience. And very soon, they'd realize it. It happened 2 days after I was let go. I was still processing everything, the abruptness, the insult, the coldness of it all. I hadn't even told my wife the full story yet. Just that it was company restructuring. I was sitting at the kitchen table, going through old files, when I got a text from one of the junior managers I'd mentored for years, Sarah. She didn't say much. Just, thought you should see this. I'm sorry. Attached was a forwarded internal memo from the VP of Technology, the same one who replaced me. It had gone out to the executive team. The subject line was, Ownership Transfer, Operational Systems Credit Attribution. The memo stated that he had been solely responsible for the design, deployment, and success of the AI systems now running the company's logistics. It listed bullet points, ones that looked eerily familiar. Too familiar. He had taken my exact wording from a presentation I'd given just 3 months earlier, word for word, and claimed it as his own. No credit. No mention. Not even a footnote. Gregory was CC'd. I scanned through the thread. Not a single person had objected. That's when I knew. This wasn't just a business decision. This was theft, erasure, dressed up as innovation. I thought I'd feel rage. Or humiliation. But all I felt was cold. I remembered something my father once told me. He was an old-school army man, the kind who believed in discipline more than words. You don't take revenge in anger. You take it in silence, when they least expect it. That night, I sat in my home office, lights off, just the soft glow of my monitor, and opened up the archive folders I'd saved. System logic maps. Backend workflows. Proprietary forecasting models. All time-stamped, all backed up. The very foundation of the AI system they were now bragging about. It wasn't AI at all. It was my framework, dressed up in buzzwords and graphs, with crucial fail-safes they'd already stripped out to optimize automation. They had built their future on a half-functional copy of something they didn't understand. And I was the only one who knew what was missing. I didn't cry that night. I didn't even feel betrayed anymore. I felt focused. They wanted clean systems, zero human oversight, full autonomy. They were about to get exactly what they asked for. And I wasn't going to lift a single finger to stop it. They thought I was gone, but I had just become invisible. And when things fell apart, they would remember exactly who I was. The morning after I saw that stolen memo, I opened a legal file I hadn't touched in years. Inside was a folder marked IP, Personal Archive. It contained emails, documentation, and dated source files that proved I was the sole originator of the routing logic, predictive frameworks, and systems now being claimed by the company's new AI model. When I first built it, I had emailed a personal copy to myself, with timestamps, version logs, and code notes on a private, secured account. Not because I ever expected a betrayal like this, but because I believed in protecting work that could change an entire industry. That day, I called an intellectual property attorney, one I had met years ago through a tech conference. I sent over the documentation. He reviewed it for an hour and said, "They're not just standing on your work. They're selling it as theirs. And that means leverage." I didn't want to sue, not yet. I wanted timing. Pressure. Control.so instead, I started preparing, slowly and deliberately. First, I reached out to a few trusted vendors and clients, people I'd worked with personally for years. I told them I was on a break and just wanted to hear how operations were running. What I heard was chaos. Orders delayed, routes scrambled, customer complaints piling up. One vendor even said, "Since you left, no one seems to know who to talk to. Everything's a mess." The new system was failing, and they didn't even know it yet. The cracks were inside the code, and I knew exactly where. You see, when they copied my system, they removed the human override triggers I had built, the ones that adapted to unpredictable driver behavior, road closures, and weather shifts in real time. Without those, the system was optimized but rigid. And in logistics, rigidity breaks everything. Meanwhile, the company was still bragging. I saw a LinkedIn post from the VP of Technology talking about frictionless automation. He ended with, "We've moved past human limits. AI is now our engine." I took a screenshot because I knew something he didn't. The engine he was praising? It wasn't built for self-sufficiency. It was built to enhance people, not replace them. And now, it was driving straight into the ground. I stayed quiet. For weeks. I watched quarterly figures drop. Client reviews dip. I read articles about early automation challenges within the company. Still, no one reached out. They were too proud, too blind. Until one night, 3:47 a.m., my phone buzzed. "Gregory." I didn't answer. An hour later, a second call. Then an email. "Daniel, we're experiencing a few complications. The board is concerned. Would you consider consulting short-term?" No apology. No acknowledgement. Just desperation, disguised as opportunity. I forwarded it to my attorney. Then I drafted my own contract. Consulting terms so aggressive, they would have to swallow their pride in full if they wanted me back. Triple rate. Full control. No meetings with the VP. Gregory called again. I let it go to voicemail. Then, I got a call from someone I never expected. One of the board members. He said, "Daniel, we didn't know the full extent of what was happening. We were under the impression this transition was smooth. What would it take to fix this? And just like that, the power shifted. I didn't scream. I didn't threaten. I just sent over my package. Documentation of system failure points. Breakdown of what had been removed from my models. Evidence of IP infringement. A proposal with a 10-day fixed timeline, under one condition. The VP of Technology would be removed from all operational oversight. They asked for 24 hours to review. It took 14. When I walked back into that office building, I wasn't coming as an employee. I was the one thing they had no backup for. The guy who actually knew how it all worked. I didn't sit at my old desk. I didn't shake hands. I walked straight into the war room, plugged in my laptop, and rewrote the code they had butchered. Every executive sat silently behind me. And for the first time, no one dared tell me what to do. I didn't take revenge by shouting. I took it by making them watch me do what no machine ever could. Think, adapt, and solve the very problems they created by replacing me. The day I stepped back into that boardroom, I wasn't the same man they discarded 6 weeks ago. There was no badge on my chest, no employee ID in my wallet, no obligation to stay polite. I was the ghost they thought they'd buried. Now I was the only one who could save them. They had already terminated the VP of Technology quietly a few days before. Officially, it was strategic restructuring. Unofficially, it was the cost of their arrogance. Gregory was pale when I entered the room. The same man who once toasted my quarterly success with champagne couldn't look me in the eye. That suited me fine. I didn't sit at the conference table. I stood at the projection screen, plugged in my laptop, and opened a single file. System Integrity Failure Report, authored by Daniel Clark. I didn't yell. I didn't point fingers. I simply walked them through the collapse. How predictive deliveries had failed because they'd removed my manual interruption logic. How weather inconsistencies weren't being accounted for because the AI didn't understand route nuance. How dozens of driver complaints had been ignored because no one thought human feedback mattered anymore. Then, I opened my second file. An audio recording. One taken legally, from my last meeting with the VP before I was removed. In it, he laughed. Daniel's a good guy, but he's old school. The system we're building doesn't need instinct. It needs scale. The board doesn't want thinkers, they want algorithms. I paused the audio halfway through. No one spoke. Not even Gregory. Then I said, I'm not here to ask for my job back. I'm here to fix what you broke. And when I'm done, I walk. Silence. Then a quiet voice from the board chair. You'll have whatever you need. For the next 5 days, I rebuilt the broken bones of the company. I re-implemented the missing failsafes. I reprogrammed the route logic based on live feedback. I reconnected the driver system to real-world constraints. And I brought in 3 of my former team leads, the same ones they had ignored, to help run simulations. By day 4, the system was already 72% more accurate. By day 5, clients had stopped calling to complain. By day 6, I was done. They asked if I'd consider staying on permanently, as Chief Strategy Officer. I declined. I submitted my invoice, with every hour logged and every clause enforced. They paid it, in full. And as I left the building, Gregory caught up to me in the parking lot. He tried to speak, to apologize, maybe, but I stopped him with a raised hand. You didn't just replace me, Greg. You erased me. But here's what you never understood. You can't automate judgment. You can't code trust. I turned and walked away. No drama. No shouting. Just quiet, final control. The VP of Technology's name eventually disappeared from the company's site. No LinkedIn updates. No press releases. Just silence. Months later, I heard he tried pitching another AI solution at a different company. They passed, after seeing a report I'd quietly published through a logistics journal. As for me, I started my own consulting firm. Not massive, not flashy. Just a small team of human-first system designers who believe in partnership, not replacement. And slowly, quietly, the companies that had once chased shiny tech, they started calling me. Because when the hype dies down, people remember who actually kept things moving. They fired me thinking I was obsolete. But when the lights went out, it wasn't the AI they called. It was the man who built it. It's been a year now. I live in a small town outside Asheville, North Carolina, not far from the Blue Ridge Mountains. No morning traffic. No endless meetings. No fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. I wake up early, brew my own coffee, and walk the ridge trail with my dog, Max. He's a rescue. Older. Calm. Kind of like me now. Some days, I work with small businesses, help them streamline systems without replacing people. Other days, I just sit on my porch and watch the sun rise. And I've never felt more free. For a long time, I blamed myself. Wondered if maybe I had become outdated. If maybe I was too attached to the old way of doing things. But now I see it clearly. I wasn't outdated. I was inconvenient. Because people in power fear what they can't control. And you can't control someone who knows exactly how things work. They wanted obedience. What they lost was wisdom. Looking back, I don't regret being loyal, even if they didn't deserve it. Because loyalty isn't about them. It's about who you are, how you choose to build, show up, and lead even when no one's watching. And when you lose everything, you find what really matters. Peace. Purpose. Self-respect. I used to think success meant titles, corner offices, performance reviews. Now, success is walking away from the fire you didn't start, and knowing you didn't burn with it. Sometimes, late at night, I still get emails. Old coworkers checking in. Clients I used to serve. Every now and then, someone asks, "Do you miss it? The pressure? The challenge?" And I smile. Because I don't miss the chaos. I miss who I was in that chaos. But I don't need the system anymore to be that man. He never left. He just changed direction. They replaced me with code and numbers. But they couldn't replace what I carried inside. They took my job. But I walked away with something bigger. Myself. If you've ever felt replaced, forgotten, or betrayed by the very people you helped build, you're not alone. And you're not broken. They just didn't see what you were worth. But one day, they will.